I am your host, Andrew Nicastro, alongside my co-hosts and amazing people here. First and foremost, brother Dave, been with me since day one, literally my day one.
Day one, I watched him be born.
Yeah,
I didn't.
You didn't watch it, but
No,
you were nearby.
That's illegal
That'd
in
be
most
kinda
countries.
weird,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
illegal.
Yeah. And then we have V, who can call Dave out on his weirdness.
Yeah.
That's
All
what
day
we need you
long.
here
Everybody
for.
on their weirdness because I'm weird myself.
All day long she is.
So Dave, 18-year veteran, and has told his testimony on episode, I believe it was number 3.
Yep.
So if anyone wants to see Dave's testimony, go back to episode number 3 of Bridging the Gap. We have V, the Cape Ann Veteran Services Director, newly appointed in the last few weeks.
Yes, she is.
So congratulations to V. And exciting podcast today as we welcome Paul Abney, one of Dave's good friends.
My buddy Paul.
A 30-year veteran. Is that right, Dave?
I want Paul to tell us. Paul?
30-year?
Yes, that's correct.
Yep.
I'm a 30-year veteran, and it's another 16 years serving as a support contractor.
Amazing.
Wow.
So 40 plus years in your
Wow.
industry. 46 years in your industry. Amazing.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we start every episode by talking about our mission. And the mission of the Bridging the Gap podcast is to quiet the stigma of PTS and mental illness that veterans deal with through storytelling, education, and relationship building. And so throughout this series, we've been having veterans come in and give their testimonies. We've had some professionals come in and educate all of us on resources and what they're seeing for statistics and findings. So we are blessed today to have Paul to join us to tell us his testimony and a little bit about where he's come from on his journey. Really quickly, though, want to go through our calls to action really quick.
Yeah.
So if you're local to Cape Ann and you need a resource, please reach out to V in the Veteran Services Office here in Cape Ann. She will guide you, help you. The best analogy I ever heard was it's like having a CPA for your accounting and taxes, right?
Yes.
That's what Veteran Services is for veterans that
I'm
need
your
help.
hub. I'm
Right.
your hub.
Exactly. So where can they find you, V, in Cape Ann?
So our office is located at 12 Emerson Ave. We're the big red barn building on Emerson Ave, so you can't miss us if you know where the open door is or pathways. We're just before that. If you enter into the pathways little domain there, you've gone too far. You can contact me via phone 978 325-5730. Almost put out my personal cell number there. 978-325-5730. You can find us on City of Gloucester webpage if you can't remember any of this, or you can Google us on Facebook, Cape Ann Veteran Services. There are a plethora of resources or ways to contact us. So I'm sure if you just Google Cape Ann Veteran Services, you'll find one that you can connect with.
Yeah. And speaking of Googling, a resource that we always like to give out is the Veteran Crisis Line. And we've talked about this quite a bit, but the Veteran Crisis Line is whatever you see to be a crisis. Don't leave it up to anyone else to decide. Whatever you consider a crisis, feel free to reach out to veterancrisisline.net. So just Google Veteran Crisis Line, or you can call the Veteran Crisis Line phone number, which is being shown on the screen, or you can go to their website and chat them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Last but not least is our Bridging the Gap podcast at gmail.com, which is now going to show on the screen as well, where if you have a story to tell and just want us to hear it, no one else, that's what that Gmail is for. Or if you just want to reach out to us and just get some more information, it goes to myself, Dave, and we're adding V to it since she's joined here as a co-host. Tell us your story and let us know if you'd like to be on the podcast. We would love to host you as well. Just like today, we are hosting Paul.
Yeah. And Paul had written the email. He'd watched my podcast with testimony. He had saw Bill, which Bill is a friend of ours, a Vietnam veteran from California. Paul said, I would like to tell a story. And that's what I love. And he's here today to tell us a story about a young Navy guy, or why he even chose the Navy, and why he made that decision to go in the Navy. Paul, why don't you let us in about yourself and tell us where you're from and how you came to the Navy.
Well, first off, thank you guys for this opportunity, and and just thank each of you for your service.
You too, brother.
Thank
And
you.
and for doing this, and Andrew specifically for doing this podcast. This
Yeah.
is, I think it's a great service for both veterans and to help those who are not veterans understand more about veterans. I love the way that the focus of this group is to kind of bring those two together and form a bridge across that gap. But I was a young man that grew up in a little town in Florida. Now I guess it's considered a part of the outskirts of Orlando, Apopka, Florida, Apopka.
I've never heard of it.
It was Seminole for big potato.
Baked potato.
And I think I dropped out of school originally or was kicked out of school because my hair was too long. I had this real long hair.
I see you still have the same problem now.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that too.
I went to a vocational technical school for a couple of years, and then I think I got kicked out of there for some reason too.
Can't imagine what it could be.
This is a great story, Steve. I love this.
I didn't know it was going to start in this direction.
This radical kid, right? But I went back and got my GED, and I got that, and actually with the I forget what he was, the teacher to help me through that, essentially telling the Navy that I would pass this thing. They allowed me to join delayed entry in December of '76. I got the old GI Bill,
76.
and I was going active in April of '77.
Amazing.
So I was going to be just a 6-year guy going in for some advanced training, and I'd get out and get an electrical engineering degree at the University of Florida and be a Gator.
How'd that work out?
Yeah, well, 30 years later, I retired in 2007 as a Master Chief Petty Officer, and then have been serving the Navy in a different capacity for the last 16 years as a support contractor. So about 46 years now playing around ASW, anti-submarine warfare, for those that don't know that acronym. But
What was your job in the beginning when you first went in the Navy? What did you
first
do?
went in the Navy, I signed up for like 3 different things in this advanced electronic field, which that was the extra 2 years. I came in as an E3. After A school, I advanced to E4, and then I went through a C school. So it was a pretty quick route that way. So I signed up for like 3 different jobs. Each of they told me 2 of them I didn't qualify for because of having a DUI before I came in that I had to get a waiver for.
Yep.
So I couldn't get the clearance I needed. And the other one, they said, "Nah, you probably don't want to do that anyway, but you got perfect hearing, so we're going to make you a sonarman." And so I became a surface sonar technician. And,
Sonar, yeah.
Talk about
and it's
somebody
been
who
kind of
changed their life
a blessing.
around.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you changed, Paul. You were being tossed out of school left and right, got a GED, and you said the military is my direction. I have a similar story.
quite
School wasn't for
the,
me. Yep.
And what did your family think, Paul, when you told them you were going to join the military? What was that conversation like?
I think my mom and dad is kind of a thank God.
Yep.
Maybe they'll turn him around. They dealt with
Yep.
this rebellious kid for so many years that and I even kind of rebelled in the church. I've been raised in a Southern Baptist church, but it's like I kind of developed my own philosophy that was the central thread of life, and that essentially 2 things that the Lord says was love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind, and love others as you love yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So well, that kind of equates to golden rule and what all these other religions believe. So that's the central thread the only thing I need to believe. And
Yeah.
I'll keep Jesus in my back pocket as my fire insurance card to keep me out of hell. And
And Paul is
I
that guy
stayed as
now.
far as
He's
I
a good
could from
man who
churches.
loves, yeah. And that's what we're missing in this world is love. That's a whole nother story. Is
Yeah.
people can't even talk anymore.
Yeah.
Have
It could be a whole
conversations.
podcast just on that.
But you said something, Paul, that stuck out, and I know V agrees that there is a type of veteran that struggles with structure on this in the civilian world. We're not good at school. We get taken out of school. We can't focus in school. But wow, when you get in the military, that structure, people training you and teaching you a certain way sticks with us, and we thrive in it. Just
I mean, we
amazing.
enter the service at such a young age. It's easy for us to be molded in that structured lifestyle.
Yeah.
So for some individuals, that's all they need is just that consistency and that structure to kind of guide them along the way.
Yeah. And Paul
Well, so-
was one of them. Yeah.
Here's a question for all of my veterans as the civilian of the group. So you brought up a great point that civilian life
Okay.
with lack of structure, I suppose. But then having the veteran life with structure, it's almost like the civilian structure, which was a school and et cetera, had very, I guess, does it all boil down to the purpose? Which when you joined the military, these individuals that struggled in civilian life found a purpose.
You know, I don't want to say that civilian life lacks
Right.
structure. It's
Yeah.
just a different, it's a different formality. It's a
Right.
different way of life. It's a different way of living. The same way the military way of life, it's just a different
right.
lifestyle. And some people can acclimate to it pretty easily
Right.
and some people are just not built for it. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with one lifestyle or the other. It's just the way our chemical makeup allows us to accept one lifestyle over the other. That's all.
Yeah. And like Paul, my brother Andrew, he did the schooling. You're in academia. You went from high school right to college. We were not meant for that at that age because of our makeup. We needed structure differently than like what V said than the civilian world.
Yeah.
We needed military structure.
You know, I wasn't a problem child. I you know, not that I enjoyed going to school, but I knew that it was part of life, and then I had to go to school, and this was what I had to do to make my parents happy and keep them off my back, and whatever the case may be. But I was bored.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was bored. I wasn't happy with what was being offered to
Yep.
me.
Yep.
And do you agree, Paul?
You hit it. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And that was a piece with mine. I think it was boredom. I picked up things pretty quickly. I could take tests very well. So I was always in advanced classes, and I was gifted in the fact that I pretty much never had to study very much. So
Says
and
the
I'd
sonar
ace-
technician. Of
and I'd-
course. Look at your life.
and I,
Poor
and,
guy.
I, and I'd aced it. And this was the way it was through most of my classes, and then as I started getting into like junior highs, I'm gonna have to lose your scenery here as I move back in the car. It's starting to rain on me now.
It ain't gonna rain on your parade though.
For our viewers, that is a real. That's not his fake background. That's an actual, not a virtual. That's a real background. He's down in Virginia Beach, in a beautiful area close
We're just
to
going on a
Danac.
walk with them.
So
We're
this
all
is
just going
this
for a
is
walk.
first on the podcast.
Yeah, it is a first.
Paul's taking us
That's
on
okay.
a walk.
That's
Virginia
okay.
I love it.
We're here for the adventure.
And our viewers missed earlier that he was by a lake, and the sign over his right shoulder was "Beware of bombs and things in the water."
Yeah.
Munitions. So now, welcome to Paul's car, everyone. Paul, tell me this.
Hi, Paul.
You said I was only going to do 6 years, but that changed. Why did that change?
Hi. I'm doing good. Thank you. It changed because essentially I was going in just for the GI Bill and to get that, and for, it was a couple different reasons. The first, they involved the opportunities. Essentially, when I was, let's see if I can find a place to put this where it's not too distracting with.
No, it's not distracting
It's
at all.
fine.
You moving it around your face. No, it looks great.
Anyway, at the end of that 6 years, actually about 6 months before that 6 years was up, I came to an opportunity to leave the ship early, and I had a ton of inspections that were coming up, and so I said, well, we'll send you out to San Diego, make you an instructor, and all you got to do is sign this page 13 to agree to reenlist when you get out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to me, worst case was I got an RE4 reenlistment code if I changed my mind after that. And so I said, well, I'll take a chance.
Yeah.
They sent me to San Diego as a single first class, E6. I was, they told me while I was out there, well, you're gonna have to go on the night shift before you can go days. So, I'm on a 4 to 11 shift, and I pretty much stayed that the entire time I was out there.
Yeah.
Here's a
So working at E shift, I learned how to sail out there. So I was sailing every day, just about.
Oh, nice.
And
San Diego. Wow.
Not a
hitting the
bad
bars at night,
Yes,
doing
we
all
do,
those
don't we?
things that sailors do.
Young, single in San Diego, doesn't matter where you are, if you're young and single. Bars tend to be part of that equation usually. Yeah.
So, Paul, it sounds like a lot of it was like a strategic move, going into the military, getting the GI Bill. Did you feel a shift where it went from strategy to just a career? Like, you love what you're doing and this is my career?
Well, that came at the end of this tour. So essentially, while I was on that 3-year tour there as an instructor on nights the whole time, I made Chief Petty Officer.
Yeah, there it is.
E7 is quite a shift in the Navy because you go from essentially you go into middle management, and like on board the ship, the crew E6 and below sleep in one berthing, eat in one dining area. The chiefs, which E7, 8, and 9, have a different dining area, different sleeping arrangements, and then the officers, the same thing. The wardroom and officer berthing is different. So you're in this middle management position where you're all working together, and I had to commit to 2 more years if I was going to do that, which would take me beyond the 9 years that I would be at right now at 2 to 11. And I said, well, if I'm going to go over 10 years, I might as well stay for a 20-year career.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was that mindset decision when I decided to put on chief, and that was at 8.5 years in the military, and so I made chief pretty young.
You did.
It changed based on the NECs that I had. I could only go to a Spruance class destroyer. That opened up new opportunity to me. I was going to go to a new Ticonderoga class cruiser, and go pre-com this ship out of. Well, it was eventually out of San Diego, but it was being built down in Mississippi, and we pre-commed it, or we went through the commissioning up in New York City.
Mm-hmm. What's amazing, Paul, is that I'm not going to age you, but he went into delayed entry programs 1977. I wasn't born yet. Oh, I aged you. Sorry. Just amazing.
Hey.
But me and Paul didn't know each other yet, but where we served, we were all around each other. So, for example, and people know my testimony, August 7, 1998, a bomb had ripped through the American embassy in Nairobi, Kenya. Within minutes, another one in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. And Paul's ship was in that area ready to respond. We were on the ground within hours. We responded to Kenya. The brother platoon, second platoon, had responded to Tanzania, and Paul was right there for support.
Wow.
Pretty amazing. Paul, do you want to kind of take us through that?
Yeah, by this time this was on my, this is the tail end of being on that third ship or my fourth ship by now, right? So I was on the USS Cole this time. This is their first deployment after her commissioning. We went to the Persian Gulf there in 1998. We were just returning from that deployment. I think we were in Malaga, Spain, when we learned of the bombings there in Africa in both locations. And I thought we were going to be called away to go back to this, and but they allowed us to go home, which I thought was, based on my previous experience, that would not have happened. But so I felt kind of, I pained for the folks there at the embassy.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I thought we were going to go and
Yeah.
do something to help you guys.
Right.
Uh,
And then a year or two later, I got sent to Kosovo, Macedonia. You were there as well.
well, I
In
was
the
off
area.
the coast there with
Yeah.
the George Washington strike group on the Cole still. This was her second deployment. We had a different, quite a different crew on board now because a lot of the FreeCom folks had changed out. We spent a significant amount of time training before this because of the number of new crew members and with all the stuff that was boiling up in that area there, Macedonia, Kosovo, we were right off the coast, waiting for something to happen and ready to kind of respond to that. When we got the call to go back to the Persian Gulf with the Cole and go relieve a couple West Coast ships. So they didn't send anyone with us. We went by ourselves through the Suez Canal, through the Red Sea, and pulled into Aden Harbor for a brief stop for fuel.
Yeah. Do you,
That is where
yeah.
that was where the story changed.
Mm-hmm. Your whole life in the military changed in that moment in Aden Harbor.
Yeah, by this time I had 23 years in the military, and I want to bring out a point that came out in this talk I had on Memorial Day, because up to this point, the only points with death that were personal to me was my dad had passed in 1990, just before my daughter was born. That impacted me because I didn't have him to connect with anymore. And then my mom passed away in 1999, about 6 months before we made this second deployment, and that was tough because I talked to her almost every week. So there were still times when I went to get on the phone to call mom, and it's like, wait, she's not there. So that made death personal, and when it was that close to the family, and but Memorial Day and understanding other veterans, anniversary dates, I really didn't comprehend it because it wasn't, it didn't connect that with like someone's death.
That's right.
Until the USS Cole. So it brought up a new piece for me because like today there's a shipmate that I work with here at Tactical Training Group Atlantic. This weekend is coming up on the anniversary of the USS Fitzgerald. It was a crash, right?
Yeah.
But it is still a death of I think it was 10 sailors on board the Fitzgerald that died and 7 on the McCain, or it might be the other way around. But anyway, that what I'm saying is, prior to this, my 23 years in the Navy, Memorial Weekend was a holiday. It was just a time to go have a picnic and stuff. And yes, in the military bases, we've paid some honor or something to those who had lost their lives there, but it wasn't personal. After the Cole, that one in 2001, it became very personal, and I recognized how wrong it was of me to say something like Happy Memorial Day, because it was likened to going to someone at a funeral and saying Happy Death Day.
Or Happy 911, right? It's not happy for any of us. Yeah.
Right. It's a and even on these death anniversaries, that this girl is staying home over this period of time because it's just you don't want to deal with people. I think you mentioned going out on a
kayak.
I
disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a time of isolation and reflection and processing that grief.
Yeah.
That's what it is really grief.
Paul, how many sailors passed away on the Cole when the explosion happened?
We lost 17 on October 12th of 2000.
Yep.
For the day. That happened at 11:18. It happened at lunch. I was we pulled in there and a little before 9, and it was supposed to be there all day. They told us about 11 o'clock. And it looks like the fuel's coming in a little faster than we expected, so we should be out of there by maybe 2 o'clock. So you need to start making preps for getting underway. They were announcing for early chow, early lunch uh, for, for the civilians listening. And then the Chiefs mess we'd already eaten. Many of us had. And so we were sitting around watching Mission Impossible 2. There were 6 of us over there. And there was another 6 that were still just had come in to eat. That right at 11:18, along almost synchronized with the movie, there was an explosion on the movie. That the next thing, the split second thought was, man, that was loud for a movie.
Wow.
And then the guy sitting in front of me, chair and all, was tossed over my head and back across the room. As the lights went out, it got pitch black and just filled the room with this acrid smoke. It was estimated 400 to 700 pounds of C4 that blew like a 40-foot by 40-foot hole in the side of this warship.
Yeah.
And just, it knocked me back in my chair, and it was pretty stunning. And just chaos from that point forward, trying to find a way out of there, trying to find, some good air to breathe. And, your training kicks in at that point. I was trying to stay low and stay out of the smoke, but the smoke just filled the room. I made it back to where the door should have been. It was just a mangled mess. So I made it to the other door that goes into the galley, and there I stepped in. The water was up to like my shin. I ran into one of the senior chiefs coming out of there, and he said, "Master Chief, I don't think we can get out this way. It's pretty mangled in there." So we both agreed to go to the false bulkhead which is, it's just, instead of it being a half inch, or not a half inch, but a 1/4 inch steel, which is a little harder to break through. The false bulkheads are like a very thin steel that is with corrugated, sort of like cardboard is, but with rolled sheet metal.
Yeah.
So knocking on this to let folks know we're on the inside and get them to tear into this to get us out of there. And I had a shipmate, grab me by the arm. I'm trying to crawl out of there and say, "Master Chief, I'm dying. You got to help me get out of here." And I had to leave him and say, we're all going to die if I can't get to that bulkhead and let people know we're trapped in here.
That's right.
And then we'll come back, we'll come back and help you. And that's what, I don't know how long I knocked on this thing. And the next thing I saw was HC2 Regal, my hero to this day. He was a guy we just put in charge of Repair 5, which is the locker team that does the main damage control for the ship in all your main spaces. So he had just been elevated to that position. I knew he knew his stuff, and getting out, it was just getting out of there. I was able to get my breath. Went up topside, tried to find people for stretcher bearers to come back down, and I ended up coming back down by the nest decks. There I ended up running across the DC-1 that said, Master Chief, you got to go somewhere else to find some stretcher bearers because we're like pretty booked up right here. And that was where majority of the casualties is in the mess line, because everybody was lined up to get chow. There was in the thwart ship P-way, means one that goes from the port side to the starboard side across the ship, and then and it ran so it connected the two passageways, or like hallways, going down, one down each side, and people were lined up on the starboard or the right side of the ship and going into this passageway when the bomb hit on the port side, which would be your left side, and basically closed off that whole section. It took where the deck would have been and just rolled it up against the up into the overhead like this, and up against that one side, and crushed people against the side, crushed people up in the overhead, and people were caught and mangled into different equipment. And so they were trying to get them loose and get them out of there and get folks triaged. The ones that couldn't make it were, taken to one place, and the ones that were trying to get evacuated were taken elsewhere.
So, Paul, I mean, that's a traumatic experience. I feel like we just need to take a breath,
Yeah, I
right?
was
I
thinking
mean,
the same
that is a lot to take in, right? And when you said, I'm on mission mode now, I understand that feeling all too well, right? There comes a point in time where you are solely focused on the mission, and that that at some point I need to say, it's not that your life is not important, or it's not that I can't handle this, but for the
Greater good of the
greater
greater
good. I
good.
couldn't get the word out. The greater good, and for the larger picture, I need to get to this door. I need to get us some help so that we all do not go
right.
down. At what point, okay, Paul? At what point are you able to step away from what just happened and really process what happened?
It was. I truly don't think I really processed it till months later. I mean, we somewhat, because it was. We were there for 3 weeks, so
Still there. You were still there on site for 3 weeks.
You had to live that every day for 3 weeks.
Gosh.
Right. Yeah. So
You're still on
while we were
mission mode.
there, there was the
You're on
threat
heightened
of,
alert.
Yeah. So it was a constant vigilance. When right after this happened, I'm just describing it. The moments after it happened, and in the midst of going out and trying to find stretcher bearers to get the rest of these guys out of there, I came across some guys that had already been triaged. Some scenes there that's it's kind of crazy, but even though I'd seen the other things, I've been in the Zachard smoke, I've been in the other stuff, it wasn't until I saw a couple of sailors laying there with some serious damage that it really hit me. This is,
this is real.
This is bad.
This is bad.
This
This
is
is
real.
real.
Yeah, and then shortly after that, I saw another kid that I still watch with that they're carrying him out on a stretcher. He gives me 2 thumbs up, and he's obviously on morphine because he's not feeling the pain, but both of his legs were pretty twisted up, and he says, they're taking care of me, Master Chief. And he was the only one that was evacuated to the hospital that didn't make it. So I'll say the only one that died off the ship, and the other 16 all died
On the ship.
prior to being evacuated. And I did make it back around. I got a breathing apparatus on to help me breathe as I was going through. We were. It was a blessing. We were one of the first ships to get what the firemen use, the SCBAs, which is it's a type of breathing apparatus, self-contained breathing apparatus. Most of the Navy at that time still had the old called OBAs, oxygen breathing apparatus, but they were. You had what was a chemical reaction is what made it. You lit a candle, which is this little device, and it burned and made the chemical reaction burned and made oxygen that you breathe.
Okay.
But you weren't supposed to wear them in a place where there was open flammable stuff because it's a burning candle underneath, right? Well, the entire ship now is covered with fuel.
That's right.
You could smell it. You could smell it everywhere. So the OBAs would have been awful. But SCBAs were great. I got some emergency breathing devices out of the combat area. We got some stretcher bearers from there to come back in. And by the time I made it back in the Chief's Mess, they had evacuated almost half the guys out. The last few we helped to get out of there. And unfortunately, the very last guy that we got out of there was Rich Costello, the guy that had grabbed me by the arm.
Oh, yeah.
The one that had been thrown over my head. And the one who later... we evacuated him out at that point. The next time I saw him was after I'd kind of verified that the Chief's Mess was empty. There were no more chiefs in there. I looked into the galley area. I found a young black kid there that I took the pulse of. There was no pulse or breathing, and he was trapped behind, pushed up against the reefers, the refrigerators with the serving line. So basically the galley serving line had him crushed against that, and So they, I passed that out to the group that was on the other side of a lot of the damage, the same ones I talked to earlier that said, you know, you're gonna have to wait, and kind of between screams of, they were trying to get a young girl leg loose from that was trapped on a piece of machinery. So it's kind of in between those screams that we passed the information that you had someone passed inside of there, no pulse, no breathing, and I made it out from there. Went back up forward by the forward locker where the damage control stuff is, and I saw that my background is really combat systems. They had the armory open. They were issuing weapons, so I gave them my SCBA and at the locker, and I went up and got a 9mm, went up topside, and it was there. I started taking a couple pictures, and also I came around and saw that my shipmate Costello was his lips were turning blue, his eyelids were blue, and they had a bag that they were giving him oxygen, but his heart wasn't going. So myself and another senior chief started doing CPR on him, and then he was called by the doc shortly after we started. So that was and things went on. This was all, Thursday. We had by Friday, the Marine Fast Company came. This is the sister company for you. So that was a huge relief there. That they came. They landed at 6. It took almost till midnight before the Yemenis let them over to us, and they didn't let them bring their Humvees. They were protecting them by having their machine guns aimed at the Marines, so that they could make sure they were safe.
Because Marines can sometimes not be safe.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So
and through some kind of blessing, also we found out later that they had extra 100 cots that we were able to put up on the that came with the drywall. But they took over our security, so that freed up a lot of people who were standing watch with security measures to make sure no one else came and tried to bomb us.
that's right.
We turned that side over to the Marines, and then everybody from the ship was able to focus on damage control.
Yeah.
And the main elements kind of happened. We had the HMS Marlborough show up that Friday as well. The next day, Donald Cook and the USS Hawes showed up, and then later on Sunday morning, I can't think of the name of the ship now. It was an AO or AE. Anyway, they had a ton of hull technicians, people that do damage control as their main job.
So now you have all this added protection and this relief. So you were finally able to disconnect and breathe for a moment, right? You know that you were in good hands now. The Marines are here. There's backup. Now you guys can pass along the reins and let them take care of you now.
Yeah.
And we've made some major breakthroughs that Saturday. We had jumped, because basically the whole forward part of the ship was without air, or, without power and without water. We jumpered power up to the forward part of the ship that Saturday. This was like 2 days later, and we jumpered water up there. So we had the living conditions set up in the berthing up forward, and this was just a blessing to have that. But later that night, we ended up with another kind of casualty. The generator, the one generator we had working, ran out of fuel. They didn't realize the reason it stopped working and everything went dark was from that. And around the same time that happened, actually it happened after a shaft seal had blown out, and one of our main spaces that we had dewatered was reflooded again, and now we're getting progressive flooding into another main space. If we have too many main spaces flood, you have a chance of losing the ship. So now we're, the power goes out, and so now it becomes a bucket brigade. Just people in the dark passing buckets from one to the other, trying to dewater the ship.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
you went from this high on Saturday to this early Sunday morning real low.
That's right.
That we could lose it again.
And Paul, it gives us a front row seat, a hard front row seat for civilians, family members to listen to one of these stories. This explosion, you have Pearl Harbor, the Marine Barracks, Beirut. We've talked about this. Nairobi, Kenya. These terrorist bombings that Al Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, orchestrated and has hit us, 9/11. And very rarely do you get a story of someone who was there in the midst of it and a part of it. And that, like V said, take a breath, because there's a pit in our stomach and a pain, because we love you, have compassion and empathy for our veterans who are part of it. And it's a real story. It's not a movie. It's real life. And you can hear it in his voice. And you have done a lot of work to be able to tell this story, because there was a time you couldn't tell it, brother. And I've heard you tell the story, and it's beautiful. You, Master Chief, did everything you could, and welcome home to you, brother, because you did amazing for that ship.
Yeah, I can tell you what started me telling the story was the beginning of my healing. I was trying to heal myself from the survivor guilt. That it was a conscious effort by myself that if I can, because I had part of the survivor guilt was the fact that I couldn't save Chief Fasolo, and another part of it was that I found myself in a lot of these efforts not leading a team doing damage control, although I was what was called a decade leader, a damage control training team leader, myself and the command master chief, who was the Fleet Marine Force corpsman. And, so this was really the first ship he was going to. So that's why they left me on there, because I had been acting command master chief back in 1999. So we're there because, I've got 23 years of background in doing damage control but not as my primary job. It's everybody's backup job, But when the stuff hits the fan, it's not the time to hit your DC books. You need to you study this stuff and do it over and over again. And training throughout the military is like this. I describe this all the time with them. And the focus of this talk that I'll do is because sorry, there's a truck backing up.
Yeah, I definitely knew that.
Yeah. The focus of the military training is so that you can do things and know them like the back of your hand, so that it becomes instinct as you do it, and you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
And so I was not, I found myself complacent in sometimes during this training, because of we're doing the same training I've done for years and years, and I was not as interested as I should have been in that. And so I had a guilt for this afterwards that, maybe I could have done more. Maybe I could have saved another life. So if I can talk to a crew member and motivate them.
That's right.
To be less complacent.
That's right.
And pay more attention as they do their drills, then maybe I can save a life.
And that's what you're doing now, Paul. Like, Paul does speak. He goes around and speaks about exactly what he just said. He tries to motivate, says, I am a survivor of the USS Cole, and here are 17 people that didn't make it, and I want to motivate each of you. Training gets us so far, but until the explosions and the bombs and the bullets are happening, we can't go to that point. When it happens for the first time, our sympathetic nervous system blows up, and the fight, flight, and freeze response hits us, because it's supposed to. It's the chemicals that keep us safe.
That's how we're made up.
That's what we're made up.
That is how we're supposed to respond.
And when it washed away, his training kicked in, her training kicked in, my training kicked in, and we can't sit there like a puddle on the floor. People will die, and we just go to our training.
Bingo.
Amazing. And that's what Paul was doing.
So that's, in talking to them, I said, look, if it takes remembering this old Master Chief crying in front of you to motivate you,
Yeah.
when you're doing your training, when you find yourself drifting off and being complacent and not paying attention in the drills, then use that, because it's, it is, the academics, they call this tacit knowledge. It is the only knowledge is learned by doing, and the easiest way to explain it is to liken it to riding a bicycle. You can have someone lecture to you all day. You can read as many books you want to on riding a bicycle, watch YouTube videos, but until you physically get on that bicycle,
Right.
you're not going to learn how to ride it.
We're going to train you for a terrorist bombing. Well, how do you do that? Nairobi, Kenya, USS Cole. You gotta go to it. He was on his war zone, right? Because it wasn't a war zone, but it instantly became a combat in a war zone, and he lived on it for 3 weeks. American Embassy, we were there for 70 days on the floor of a blown up embassy. He's there on the same boat. The people passed away, living in his trauma, living in his war zone. It's so difficult, so difficult to do.
And just, and some of it just becomes even like the smells,
They're triggers.
and the sights and the sound, just different things that can trigger, and
Just the anniversary, right, Paul?
Right. There's a whole other side to it that comes just in the legal aspect. I won't get into that right now, but I'll tell you, in trying to get these reporters who were compassionate about the terrorists that are in Guantanamo Bay, that we're just as compassionate about getting justice on that, but we're waiting for the legal process to go through.
Right.
It's like you try to describe to them what the living conditions were like and the working conditions for these crew members on the ship. I said, think about throwing out your garbage for several days in the middle of the heat, and then going to stick your head in there and smell, because you got a ship with no power now.
That's right.
They were in the middle of serving chicken fajitas that day. Stuff is strewn all over the place, and the weather, there's no AC anymore, and the weather's
In
now
the Middle East.
120 degrees up topside in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what began to happen with all this food and debris and everything that's all over the place.
Me and Paul.
I
was gonna say, we were just with each other this weekend at the Welcome Home Initiative Veterans of War Retreat Center. We met there in February of 2020, where me and you first met, shared testimony, and that's how we connected, because we needed to tell a story to heal. And we've not stopped since. We've been to four of these together. We won't stop. It's a family now, and we do this back and forth, telling stories to get it out and to share.
Bring it to light. Bring it to light.
Bring it to light. You have to bring it to light.
Get it off your shoulders and just bring it to light.
It's just, don't keep it inside.
Paul, I really commend you for looking survivor's guilt right in the eye and using that to motivate you to make change within yourself and to force that onto others to face their own level of survivor's guilt and battle those demons. Because I it is hard. Survivor's guilt is hard, man. It really it hits you. Why them and why not me? It really hits you. So Paul, what kind of support system did you have that kind of helped you along with that? Is it something that you acknowledged on your own? Was it something through the Welcome Home Initiative? Was it fellow comrades? Was it family? What helped you along?
Well, like I said, I continued to do this while I was in uniform. I then retired, but that cost me a marriage. I've been married 16 years at the time of my retirement. Actually, I separated in 2004, so 3 years before my retirement. And I won't say that it's all from the PTS, but I think a good section of that was from the PTS. So I didn't find anything that really helped me. I tell you, when I said it took several months before it really hit me, it was that Memorial Day of 2001 that it really hit, because I was out with my then wife and 2 daughters, and along with 2 other couples with kids, and we were in a pontoon boat. And when it really, what this day meant, hit me, I just wanted to crawl up in a corner and bawl my eyes out. And I'm stuck on a boat. So I did not have a good day. And from that point forward, I didn't do anything Memorial Day. And until this last Memorial Day, when I actually talked and addressed that.
Yeah.
I later, I met my current wife in the midst of trying to heal myself and find, there was one person I recalled on the ship that was like a rock through this whole thing, more so than anybody else. And she was a first class who worked for me that was a devout Christian. And I wanted that. I wanted that, and I think that's helped bring me back to that and my current wife. When we came together, we said, "Well, look, we're going to put the Lord first in our marriage." And even though we really didn't have a good, I'll say, a strong Christian point, it was more of a spiritual belief in God than a. But we started attending a church, and it was there at that church
Community.
They told me about the Welcome Home Initiative. Jan and I both went to that. By now, I had already, in 2011, I gave my life to Christ. I surrendered my will to His will, and I think that was the beginning of my healing, because now I have someone to kind of lay my burdens on. And when I went through the Welcome Home Initiative with Father Nigel and talked with him, he was able to take me to a point where my worst memories were and where the survivor guilt really stemmed from, and find Christ in that moment. And allow me to heal from that point.
Changed the memory, didn't it?
Yes, it did. And from that point forward, I just felt called into this ministry and trying to get more involved in it. I went to a program that some Special Forces guys started called the Operation Restored Warrior. It was a 5-day program. They helped explain a different side of the gospel that I hadn't heard before. Also, that it's not a different gospel; it's the same gospel, but it's just a different side of Christ, I should say. That He is a man of love, but and a God of love, but also a warrior, and that we have a spiritual battle on this earth, and until He comes back, that we're dealing with forces and principalities that are not of this world, and that are not seen, that are unseen, and I think that spoke to the warrior heart in me, and it helped me understand that it's about being on the. I wear this ring right here. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, we see it. Says something on it though. Oh, the cross, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a sword.
Yeah, I can see the point.
Well,
at the
something I
bottom.
like that you said, and V, we know, like, the veterans, we have a warrior heart. And when we get hit with trauma, no matter what hits us, from the guilt to the stuck memory, we want that warrior heart back. And how are we getting it out? Me and Paul go to a really deep place of going back to the memory, reshaping it and changing it. And any person out there with trauma, doesn't matter veteran or not, if we're hiding it, if we're packing it away and we're not coping in a healthy way, it's like a poison inside. We're dying inside.
It just keeps
eats us.
eating us and eating us.
Yeah.
Until it completely devours
Yes.
us. Yeah, you need
Yes.
to get it out. You need to whether you sit in a room and you vocalize it to an empty room, or you vocalize it to 8 other men and women,
That's right.
or in a group setting environment, you need to vocalize this.
Yeah.
You need to get it off of your chest. Get it out of here
out.
and out into the open.
The darkness needs to get out into the light.
Yeah,
It's
and
in
that's how
there.
you really begin to tackle these demons.
Yeah.
It really
Yes.
truly is.
And just to reinforce that, as someone that has no military experience, I am touched by your story. And again, going back to why we're doing this, it bridges the gap of understanding, even just a hair, to show compassion and empathy for what you experienced. and what you experienced coming back. I can't imagine that Memorial Day weekend where you're just trying to, where you just want to curl up in a ball, and us civilians are just
Just barbecuing, just having fun,
are so
drinking
disconnected.
beer.
We can't help but see every one of their faces. It's a movie reel of faces. It's a movie reel of the ones we loved, and there's a lot of them, and it plays over and over again. And guess what? Because they're in our heart. They're in our heart, and that's why.
Yeah. I watched. I think Pearl Harbor came out, that movie, sometime there. I couldn't watch it when it first came out. I had to
Right.
wait till it came to DVD. I watched it in my home.
Yeah. Yeah, broke
I
you.
bawled.
Yeah.
Because with me,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking of the cold. That was
That's
one
right.
little hit.
That's
and
it.
we're suffering through this. Those guys that went
Oh,
on
yeah.
and
On
on
and
and
on.
on. Oh,
Yeah.
and they just got, wave after wave
That's
of
right.
aircraft and coming in, and it was just so.
It gives us compassion for
It
World
hit me
War
so
II
hard.
veterans, the love we have for our World War II veterans, the Vietnam veteran, every veteran that has served Cold War, every war, every non-war, because we raised our hand and was part of the system that had to go to war, even the supply that had to provide the bombs, bullets, and bandages. Every one of
Right.
us.
And I think, go ahead.
No, that's it,
No,
Paul.
go ahead,
Please.
Okay. Yeah, I was Sebastian Younger. Okay, you guys
Perfect
recognize
Storm.
We know
Oh,
him.
yeah. We know him very well here in Gloucester,
Yeah.
Massachusetts.
Oh yeah. Okay, well he did a documentary called Restrepo up in the Kurgan Valley of Afghanistan, which is where like 70% of the firefights were. It was just a real tough area, and him and his photographer were up there. And coming back from that, he had realized he had PTS.
Yeah, of course.
And he did a couple of YouTube talks about that, and they really helped me understand it a little more. That it goes to a core issue, and it was explained easier after I've learned my faith. Okay, because there they break down love into 4 components that the Greeks use. And Eros love is the romantic love of like a man and a woman.
Yep.
Okay, it is
Yep.
it is that love in the couple. Storge love is the love of a family. So your love of your parents, your love of your children. So it is that close bond that comes from the family. And phileo love is brotherly love. It comes more. I think Storge love can cover siblings as well. Where phileo love, even though it's like brotherly love, this is more like, I think, companionship.
Yeah,
Brotherly love,
yeah,
right?
friendship, the
People
bond, camaraderie.
People
Yep.
that you have a close friendship with.
Yep.
And he likened what the brothers out there were to phileo love, or what he called brotherly love.
Yep.
And I think that's very close to it, but I think it actually goes beyond that.
Yeah, there's
It
one
goes
more,
to-
right?
The other one is the verb is agapeo love,
Yep.
and the noun for it is agape love.
Agape.
This is the love of this is the sacrificial love of laying down your life for someone else.
Yep.
And that love describes the love of our Lord, and it describes the love that you feel in the midst of hell
Yeah.
when
The war.
when when you have shipmates or soldiers or battle buddies that are putting that you might not even get along with, but they're laying their life down for you.
That's right.
And you're willing to lay your life down for them. That bond that comes from that kind of love is so strong that in this one YouTube video, he talks about he had the captain that was out in his Restrepo film that and the lady asked him, "Is there anything you miss about being there?" And he said, "Absolutely everything, ma'am." And he's trying to describe that, he says, well, it's not that he's homicidal, that he wants to go back there and kill someone. It's not that he's suicidal, he wants to go back there and be dead. It is that, this bond that he wants to be back in, where you're safe with your brothers because there's such a bond between
that
you.
deep love.
And you come
That
back
deep love.
into an environment there where you can't even trust someone with the shirt off your back. It's like, I don't want to be in this environment anymore. I want to be back there with where I know
we're lacking that deep
my-
brotherhood
my
and
back.
love, sisterhood and love.
When you come back home, that's
Correct. It's in the chaos where it's the deepest, the sacrifice. I look to my left and my right, and I love that person, that I want them to go home to their family, that in the midst of it, I'm willing to set my life down and theirs be raised up so they can go home. And when we come here, it's hard. We don't see that and we don't feel it. But it's here. It is here.
It is
It's
here.
here.
It is here. I mean,
It
Gloucester is such an amazing community. It is here.
here.
There are many, many, many people who are
right.
always looking to help or helping to connect within the veteran community
Yes.
alone, let alone within one another. There's many groups during COVID that were formed just to help one another in
Yeah.
some way, shape, or form. So it is here.
here.
But we are blinded, right? We
That's right.
only see things from a one-sided perspective,
Yeah.
right? I will only feel loved by my fellow comrade. I will not be accepting of the love by those that did not serve beside me.
Yeah.
And it's just something that we need to overcome. I'm sorry, Paul. It's just something that we need to overcome
Yeah.
and battle within ourselves
right.
to see that this is not the reality of life. There are many others that are out there that are willing to lay their lives before us
Yes.
for our better good.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
No, I'm just going to, okay, that last part you said, okay, I will concur with that, but I think a lot of it is not an agape love. A lot of it is more of a superficial.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm willing to help you so far,
So
but
far.
laying my life down means beyond so far.
Yeah.
It means that if I have to sacrifice something of myself, I will do it. And that is a
agree.
big difference. And I will tell you that, it took us a while even to find a church where I felt that, because first off, I don't think, I think too many people, in myself being the first of those, believed that for the longest time that, churches were the building. But I found through, a good church and an accurate church that it is the people.
It's the people,
And
community
it
is
is
the
the
people.
connection. It is the relationship.
Yeah. Yep.
And the relationship of a actual church, of a Acts 2 model church, is a church of people who rely on each other so much that they do lay their lives down for each other, and they're willing to sacrifice things of their own to help their brother and sister. And that's the kind of love that we're talking about, and that we felt in that unit. But I think, and I love it when there, I'll say, I know first responders, a lot of them are that way with each other. And I think you find that in some organizations, but
Well, I know that
Paul,
it's
a tough call.
Yeah. And well, with V being the director, that's what you're trying. You are establishing that deep-rooted love for the veterans in the community, and that's what we're doing here. The veteran service officer,
Just
the director.
providing them a safe space
Yeah.
for them to be able to come in and be able to either connect with me or at least connect on a level where they are accepting of any resources that I can connect them with.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I want to say to the veterans out there, again, the ones that watch and the family members, that suicide is never the option. I know the pain you feel is intense, and it's there.
It's not helping the cause.
No, just like Paul told the story, it's okay to feel the deep pain. The memories hurt. It's tough. What we're trying to do is get the resources for healing You don't want to end your life. We know that's
Right.
what the voice is or
It's
whatever
a temporary
you're saying.
fix, right? In your mind, you think
Yeah.
that's going to solve everything. That's
No.
going to be the solution, and
That's
no
right.
one else has to worry about this but you, because it is your problem, and you're going to remove yourself from that problem.
That's
But
right.
that is not the
not
reality.
the answer.
You complete suicide. Guess who you've left behind to handle
Yeah.
that problem?
We
Your loved
understand your
ones.
self-loathing. It's self-loathing. It's dark. It's painful. It's depression. It's stressed. It's demonic evil talking to us to end it all. And it's a lie. It's a lie. Reach out to your brothers and
Right.
sisters who love you
And it is-
here.
right.
You know? Yeah. This is it. So that brings us to the resources.
Yeah.
I believe.
And
I don't know
it
the
is-
time, but you have
Right.
something to add, Paul?
Yeah. Can I quickly put in there just a piece on suicide? I'll
Yeah,
tell you,
please, Paul.
It is. You think? Because I've been close before, and it is not helping anybody. You think you're helping others. You think you're helping them more by doing that, but you're laying more burden on them.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, we had, before the first anniversary of the Cole, one of my close friends on board the ship. It was right after 9/11 happened, before the first anniversary of the Cole. He took his life, and it was so traumatic for all the members to have to go to his funeral like weeks before we had the first anniversary of this
Right.
bombing.
That's
Right.
re-triggering that traumatic
it-
experience.
Yep.
So
Re-triggering.
it adds more trauma to your brothers and sisters
Yes,
and
it
your
does.
family and everybody else that loves you. Do not take your life.
No. No, you
It-
mean
it-
too much to us.
It
Yeah,
is
every one of
a
them.
lie. It's a lie of the enemy.
Yeah,
You're
it's a
loved.
lie. You are loved. That's right. We love every veteran. We love everyone out there that is in that self-loathing, dark place that they can't even think of their family members and their burdens because they can only feel the moment, the pain, and the numbing and everything in there. And please come for help. Please come for help. It's out there for you. Yeah.
As a civilian, obviously, I can't claim to know that agape love, that love of giving up your life for someone else or willing to. But Paul, as you were telling your story, I was just overflowing with love for you and your story. So again, to bridge the gap of civilians in the community, so that we can at least come close to understanding, and at the very least, feel nothing but love for you. So just. Thank you so much for telling your story. We honor you
Yeah,
so
Paul.
much.
Love you, brother.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for this podcast. I thank you, V, for the stuff you're doing with the veterans and giving these other outlets and these other pieces. And my brother there, I know, we'll continue to work together
yeah.
and
See
save
you in
as many
October.
souls
Yeah.
as you can, brother.
Get to hug you in October at another one of these retreats. And any veteran, you're welcome. You're welcome to the retreats, every one of them.
And for any veterans that want to learn about these retreats, you can email bridgingthegapvetspodcast@gmail.com. Our director today, Andrew Boga, will throw it on the screen because he's a
Boga.
stallion. So yes, shoot us that email. We will be happy to connect you with resources, tell you about this upcoming retreat. And if you just have a story to tell, email us. We would love to hear your story. Even if it's just through email form, that's totally fine. And if you feel compelled to tell your story on the podcast, as you can see, we would love to be able to help bridge more gaps.
Yep.
That's what this is all about. For anyone in the Cape Ann area, please reach out to V in the Veteran Services office here in Cape Ann. She is just a wealth of knowledge and just so amazing and just willing to help you with any and all needs. And like we've all talked about, where if you have a crisis, whatever you define that crisis as, go to veterancrisisline.net, Google it, call the numbers, text. There's an online chat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just don't resort to the worst case scenario. There are resources here to help you. And that's what this is all about. Any last words before we sign off here, anybody?
I love it. I'm blown away. I love stories.
This
I
is
love
amazing.
testimony. I appreciate you for emailing us, wanting to tell this story. I know it wasn't easy, but it helps everybody understand you and what we go through as
Yeah, I
veterans.
appreciate your courage
Yeah, Paul.
of putting your story out there for others to at least be able to connect and find that maybe I can tell my story too.
Yes,
Maybe
yes.
I can bring my story to light.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Thank you,
I
brother.
appreciate
Thank you
that,
so
Paul.
much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I got to speak yesterday about the cold to my command, and
So cool.
I appreciate this as well.
Yeah.
This is
Awesome,
great.
awesome. So then we are signing off with another episode of Bridging the Gap. Thank you all so much, and have a
See you
great rest of your
next
day.
month.